What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit. This week we're going to talk about building community, building relations, building it the right way, some keys to being the difference, and just some pre-conversation. I'm really excited to jump into. It's one of those things. That's what I love about this show is sometimes, and I said we're going to talk about these two things because this is some of the things that we talked about last week. Jennifer McGovern-Schoeff and I, who is a community relations specialist over at CGC Water. And so we were having this conversation about community building, about building relationships the right way. And then what's really awesome is I had a chance just kind of organically in last week's episode, for everybody that tuned in, you'll remember exactly what I'm talking about. I had a chance to, and Jennifer doesn't know this yet, I had a chance to organically talk about how building community relations the right way. And I had met with Jennifer last week, and I met with another person last week, and it was a tale of what not to do on one end and exactly what to do as you're building community relations. The first gentleman talked about himself the whole entire time for a whole entire hour and a half, not asking any questions, just taking time. And then the very next day I got an opportunity to meet with Jennifer that is very opposite, where we're asking each other questions, we're getting to know each other. You can tell that there's an interest to get to know somebody, right? But not only that, Jennifer had already connected me with so many amazing people before we even met and before we had our one-on-one conversation. So I'm excited to get into that because we were able to talk about that last week. But then sitting here in the studio, we start talking about being a reformed people pleaser in some of the tips and tricks in what she does to set herself up in her schedule up for success so that she can pour back and give back to the community. So Jennifer, welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, Jason.
Absolutely. I'm excited. It's like one of those things, when we're having the conversation, I'm like, oh crap, I wish this was recorded. We gotta dive back into some of the stuff.
Hurry and take notes.
Hurry up and take notes. But this was cool is, again, we just jump into this conversation. It just kind of happens. And I'm like, so a lot of people get nervous about coming on the show. And I'm like, it's just how we talk right now is exactly what happens, except we have a headset and a microphone.
Right. Absolutely. I think that is one of the key approaches that I take with building relationships in the community. And it really isn't any different than building relationships personally. It's just knowing who you are authentically and showing up. And we talked a little bit, if I can talk a little bit about our pre-conversation and stuff, but I was listening to someone speak recently, and they said in order to really, because people will remember you because of not necessarily what you do and what you say, it's how you make them feel. Mm-hmm. And so if you approach things with an authentic heart, and you really want to listen to people, because people have stories to tell and they have information to share. And I think that is a trust builder. And so when you like somebody and you trust somebody and you show up authentically, you're remembered and you might be respected and people want to collaborate. And that's just the magic sauce.
It's magic.
Yeah, of making things happen. And so this talk was talking about how if you fill your schedule too full, it doesn't allow you to authentically love people, and you're more focused on the tasks than what's around you. And whether those are opportunities, blessing other people, finding needs, or just, I call them divine appointments, where you might have a little bit of a lag time in your day, to just check up on somebody, or just to be really purposeful and spend that extra time listening and talking to people. And I find that those are some of the richest conversations and the richest connections that I can make.
And you told a really awesome story that I want you to share in a second here. But what I love is what started this conversation. What do you label in your calendar? What do you block off?
So I started every year. I try to think about ways to find more balance, because I think for me, because I'm such a creative individual, I have to find balance in my life. When I'm balanced and I make time for myself, I can pour into others. It's not because I find that if I'm too busy, too many obligations, running in too many directions, it's really easy to build up resentment, or you're just not present.
Yep.
And you can't make those authentic connections. It's more transactional, and that I just don't like that. And so what I've adopted into my plan is I put on my calendar, do nothing. And so I authentically can tell people it's not like do nothing for 7 days in a row, 24/7.
Sorry, I'm booked.
So
Swamped.
right, I'm booked. But there are times. So whether it's just an hour of time, or if I need a couple hours, or if I need a day during the weekend, or if I have a day during the week, because if we don't take the time to really search what is important to us, what our purposes are, you're influenced. You're going to either be the influencer or you're going to be influenced. So you're going to be influenced by people. What are you doing? Nothing. Well, come help me. And so as a reformed people pleaser, I don't mind helping people, but I have to find, I told you there's boxes, there's the family box, there's, the community work box, and then there's my spiritual box. And as long as those are all kind of aligned, everything works out well. If something is out of alignment, I need to stop and think and try to refocus and rebalance. There's no perfect science, but I tell you what, it's really been working.
Well, because it goes back to when you're on the airplane and they tell you to put the mask on yourself first, because if it's not about being selfish or greedy or, I got to keep time for myself. You got to refill to yourself. You got to keep those buckets filled, or like you said, it becomes a task, or you become resentful that you're doing these things. Yeah. And the whole entire intention of it in the first place is to give back and to help people. Right. And if you're doing it from a resentful spot because your time is being taken and you're not able to give back and pour into yourself,
right,
why even do it?
Right. And then you can't really have conversations with people if your mind is on other things. You just have to stay open. Yep. So I just consider it as like a buffer. It's a buffer to just be able to add, because when you go, there's so many. I know we talked about one of the books that I really enjoyed reading, The Go-Giver.
Yes.
And so that's going in equipped to not be transactional, and going in equipped to have something in your hand, to say that, I want to offer my network. I want to offer collaboration. I want to offer my insight. I want to offer my experience. Those are valuable points. Not a lot of people do that.
It's so true. Not a lot of people do that.
No.
But, to your point, if you don't intentionally, and the word you said at the very beginning was intentional, right? You're intentionally setting up your day, your week, your time. If you're not intentionally doing that, it does get taken.
It does.
If you're living this life right now where you wake up and the next thing you know, you're eating dinner and going to bed and doing the same thing, you're probably on that cycle of having other things fill up your time without intentionally doing it yourself.
So we're all allowed the same amount of time, and it's an investment. It's like, Monday morning, you start with the same slate that everybody else does, and how you spend that. Are you investing it? Are you carelessly spending it? Are you being a good steward of that? Are you maximizing those dividends to be able to maybe have more time, or develop collaboration so you don't have to create the wheel? I know we talked about John Maxwell is another author that I love. Yeah. And he talks about a lot in his books about mastery and focus on what you're good at. Don't have that scarcity mindset and feel like you have to be good at everything, and own up to it and be okay with it. But when you go out in the community and you talk to people, you find out their stories, their passions, what makes them tick, what things they're working on, and they may have a special piece to the puzzle, an ingredient that will, enrich your network, enrich your life, enrich your experiences, enrich their experiences, add value to them. And to me, that's beautiful. And when you come bearing those gifts, it just naturally happens. It naturally is a give back. So it's not with the intentions of I'm giving this and where's my where's my promo, where's my coupon, where's my you better deliver.
I've always said it's like, even when I've for years training salespeople, I'm like, it's impossible to do good things and not have good things happen back to you. And It's not like showing back up on somebody's porch being like, knock, knock. Hey, remember that thing I did for you? It's time to pay back.
Right.
You know,
I was nice last Wednesday.
It's not like that, but it is that go-giver when you go out and it's how you make people feel.
Right.
When you light up people and you make them feel their best selves, or you make them feel great, you're gonna have all of a sudden opportunities and things that open up. People are going to share their network with you, for example, and that's the most valuable resource we have.
Right. And that's the thing. And so being in community relations, and it's being involved, being aware, having conversations, not really going in with an agenda and intentions. Usually what my agenda is I do research on the person I'm meeting with, find out more about them, find out more about their business, because I want to add value. I want to see who I can connect them with. You experienced that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what's so cool is the first two people was like, they've been on my list of people that I've wanted to connect with. It's like, so awesome. Thank you so much.
It's always good to have warm introductions, and I love doing that. And I'm passionate about that, and I love that aspect of my job. So building the communities, it's, through events, through experiences, through relationships, people that you have relationships and you build that vulnerability, they let you into more areas of their life. They start opening other doors. And I feel so privileged that people have done that in their lives. So, whether it's like I'm going through this difficult time, being available to listen, maybe referring a resource to be able to help them with that situation, or connect them with somebody who's gone through that situation. So it's a deeper, authentic level. So it's it's a long game. Mm-hmm. So that's where the balancing acts happen. So you do things in the short term where you get kind of immediate results. You check all the boxes, you do all the matrix, because we all have to work.
Yep.
But I really focus and I spend a lot of time in the long game. Because, for one, Brighton, I love this community. I don't reside in Brighton, but I feel like it's my home away from home. Yeah. And the more people I connect with, the more I care about things, the more nonprofits I find out, the more organizations, the more things that are going on, the impact that it has. One person can make a huge difference. One person can make change. And like I said, if you walk into every situation, every meeting with good intentions and listening and offering people the best of what you have to give, that in itself is a treasure.
Absolutely. You talked about John C. Maxwell and identifying your strengths. At what point did you identify your strengths and commit to honing on those and working on those?
So I'll be honest, I did it backwards. I was so focused on these are things I can't do.
Yeah.
And the things that come easy, I just assume that they may not have as much value. But through maturity and through self-exploration and through having good mentors and through just really doing a lot of reading and a lot of soul searching, I realized it's almost laughable. The things that aren't okay, the broken crayons or the dull crayons, or I don't have to worry about sharpening those. I just find new ones in other packs.
Yeah.
I just say, you know what, I need a green crayon today and I don't have one, and I'm not apologetic about it.
Or you have a friend that's an amazing artist. It makes a picture that far better than you can, and you say, hey, that's how it works out.
I might have the concept, the idea, the vision of something. Somebody might be able to execute that. I might be able to collaborate an idea. I might be able to help with adding a value point. I might be able to donate water. I might be able to showcase or introduce somebody. Those things, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. And so I changed my mentality, my perspective. And so I just authentically approach people with who I am, And I'm not apologetic. If it's out of my capabilities, say, I'm not really great at that, but I do know somebody who is.
Yeah.
And when I started working in the Brighton area, I think I'm going on 4 or 5 years now, I knew no one. So it was kind of, I call it kindergarten principles. You walk into the classroom, you don't know anybody, you kind of pick a seat, and then you talk to the person next to you, and you talk to the other person next to you. And then you get kind of a little crowd, and then you find out when you go to the playground, who the fun kids are to play with, and who the kids that push people down on the playground, and you don't associate with those. And then, you kind of learn and get an idea of schedules and different things like that. So it's, and taking turns to listen, taking turns to talk. I don't know. I just apply real simple things to my life, and they seem to work out okay.
It's so fun. You said I did it backwards, but like we all do. It seems like the majority. I had to laugh and giggle at it because you said it's laughable, but it is. But we all go through that, and we beat ourselves for that lack of what we're not.
Right.
So many times, and then we think, oh, these are the things that are easy, and we neglect that. That's our special. Those are our differences.
I know. And then somebody goes, "Oh, that's okay," but it's like that took me 4 hours, and they're like. But, that's the thing. That's when you learn, it goes back into investing your time. You have so much time. Why not invest it in the maximum capacity that you're going to get the biggest return? And, if you only have so much time, ask your friends, ask your colleagues, is this something? And sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes it's no. But, timing and just having that network of strong people to collaborate with, and then in return, help them.
Before we get back at it, a quick shout out for our sponsor, Playbook Builder, powered by AI. This show has always been about giving the resources and the tools to small business owners in order to grow and scale your businesses successfully. And so I'm so excited to partner with a company that does just that. If you've listened and heard any of our guests, you've heard talking about building process, developing and training, building culture, are all such important pieces in order to building a great company. Well, Playbook Builder, powered by AI, has come along and revolutionized the game on how you can do that for your team and people. Whether you're onboarding new people, training and developing, continued training and developing, you're looking to scale your business or eventually sell, or most importantly, you're looking to build a legacy as a visionary. Playbook Builder, powered by AI, is able to solve those problems for you. For me as a consultant, I've been able to plug in, and it's so amazing for what I do for clients. I can now leave a legacy. And so, for example, I'm next week training a new hire for a company, and I've been able to build out the next month of her training program using Playbook Builder, powered by AI. The cool thing about the AI, what does that do? What's the hardest part of building out a process? Taking the step by step and making it easy to learn. What the AI piece does is you can actually type in what process it is, whether you want to onboard, if you want to onboard a new employee, type in onboard a new employee and what type of industry you're in, and the AI will put together a foundation for you to build out your playbook. It is absolutely incredible. But don't take my word for it. Head on over to playbookbuilder.com, and these guys have set it up to where you can take this for a test run with no obligations. Plug in what kind of playbook you want to build. If it's a sales training playbook, for example, plug that in the description. And in the description, you can also put in what kind of industry you're in, and then hit generate, and it will generate a playbook for you. Impress from there, and you can take a 30-day free trial of the playbook system altogether. This is just kind of clicked when is your authentic self, is your unapologetic authentic self, and you understand your strengths. How much easier is it to find a place like a CGC Water that has the culture, and you get to plug those things and to do what you love to, the things that light you up.
I know that's what drew me to CGC, is because I was familiar with their culture. I'm a people watcher, so before I engage with people, I try to kind of absorb like what's going on and who they are and different things. And then I'm really introspective and listen to people and things like that. And so this culture, I mean, just our mission statement, our core values are, fun, family, community, service, coachability, integrity, serve with excellence. All of these things are who I am. And I'm like, I don't have to jump up and down and be an influencer and say, hey, let's seek change. This is who they are. And so it was a good fit. It was a good fit, and they've really embraced me. I've embraced them, and I feel so blessed to be out in the community doing what I'm doing.
Well, because you talk about how to build that community, how to treat people, your heart, and then you were just sharing the story of the client that had to reschedule.
Oh yeah.
And so, I thought this was just a good example of that.
Yeah. And so this also goes back into not overscheduling your time because it's so easy.
Yes.
We were talking about how you can't take every opportunity, can't be everywhere, can't do all things, can't be all things for all people. And if we don't allow that balance, when these things come up, it's harder to divert off that path. But I had a customer call me and say that she got my card, and she met me and we talked for a moment, and she said, yeah, my husband has a health issue, and we can't get our RO system up and running, and we're on the books, but it's a few days out, and I'm just really concerned. And I said, well, do you have time to be put on hold? I said, after listening to her whole story and letting her know that I heard every word that she said, connected her with customer service. They reassured her that the first appointment, if it did get canceled, they'd bump it up and contact her. And before we left the conversation, I looked and I realized that she wasn't very far from where I was. And I said, ma'am, if you're okay and you feel comfortable, I'd be happy to drive out to your house and give you a few cases of water to help provide ease. And I said, you have my phone number, you have the office phone number. If you need to reach out or have additional questions, we can help you. And when I did finally show up, she answered the door, and I introduced myself, and she's like, oh, okay. And then she goes, how much do I owe you? I said, you don't owe me anything. I said, this is what I do. I help people, and I'm glad I got to help you today. And I almost cried because I look forward every day because I never know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
It's very symbiotic. I never know. I might have plans and intentions, but those can change. And so that was a beautiful thing. And she was just kind of like taken back. And she's like, thank you very much. And I said, if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call, but this is what we do.
Just think of the impact of that. And that's outside of doing business with somebody.
Yeah.
Like the impact of that could give someone that maybe, and who knows, I don't know this, but may have a cynical view of people.
Right.
And then all of a sudden there's a hope because there's someone like you that's just doing this from the kindness of their own heart, not to get a dollar or anything else.
Right. And that's the thing. And there's a time and a place for everything. And obviously, we talked about this too, no matter what industry you are, or really what occupation you are, we might be at different levels, but everybody in the world is a salesperson, really essentially, because when you think about it, you learn this at a very young age. You try to negotiate, I want to wear flip-flops in my bathing suit, even though it's December. Or
I want pancakes for dinner.
I want to eat ice cream first. Whatever it is, you try to negotiate and work things out. You learn as you mature that there are finesses to that. And you also know that with certain people, you can only push so far, and you don't want to damage that relationship. And so you just say, I understand, I respect you. We're good. Maybe we can revisit this a different time. But, kids can be tenacious, and I pay attention to all these things. My kids were, and that's how I got my first sales job. Is I told the guy that was interviewing me, I said, I know I'm going to do great at this. I said, because I can convince my daughter, who's dressed in a ballerina costume, ready to go to school in December, that is not appropriate. without any tears, and we make it to the bus on time. So if I can do that, I can do this.
That is phenomenal. Was that your first ever sales job?
That was my second.
Okay.
That was my second, but completely different industry.
Yeah.
And I think that was the clincher because I have a lot of the same effect, but I am not your normal salesperson. I'm not your normal... really none of us are. If we really look at who we are and what we can offer uniquely, we can embrace that and we can let people know that. But I don't know. I kind of take pride in that. And I really enjoyed that. And he said that was what really kind of clinched it for me. He was like, nobody's ever described about trying to convince their kindergartner that they can't wear a ballerina outfit to go to school. And I'm like, yeah, and it's real life. It's a real deal. But that's another thing about building relationships in sales. It's telling stories. Telling stories is important because it allows that person to visualize, connect emotionally, and also to relate. Now, when we like somebody, we trust somebody, and we can relate to somebody, and we can see the value in it. And sometimes I think in word pictures, so it's easy for me to tell stories.
Yeah.
But when you do that, it builds connections there too. And you can't fake that. You can't just, before you go in a sales meeting, let me think of a story, because it won't come off. But you have to be able to have that spontaneity to be able to connect with people and tell them things, make them laugh, make them feel something, make them realize that,
It just made me think of a recent situation, a conversation I had I just met a friend for lunch, and she was telling me she was having troubles with sales. And so she didn't necessarily, it's so funny because you think what you do is obvious, and it's not. And, so this is a big thing for sales too, and having conversations and communication. And we talked about communication is so important. People don't necessarily have a full understanding of what you do, even though you think it's obvious.
Right.
And so she was saying she was having trouble with sales. And so this is what I love to do, like I'm like jumping in, I'm asking her all these questions, and we went in to like this, 45-minute conversation, and she had some great strategy at the end. And then she was like, well, this is so awesome. How can I refer people to you? How could I, repay back? I'm like, this is what I do. Like exactly what we did here. This is what I do. I'm like, I love, working with solopreneurs that have a purpose, a passion, and expertise that, sales is not one of them. They struggle with that, or they're having a hard time with it. And she's like, oh my God, I'm your perfect client, and I was like,
so let's open the calendar. Tuesday, I'm doing nothing.
But it's just a little bit of a story, and all of a sudden she was like, oh.
Yeah, that is so cool. And that's the thing. And you have to believe it yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't internalize it, believe it, it's not that you have to have all the answers. That's the other misconception that I had to get over too, because we are always constantly learning. Things change, processes change, technology changes, products change. And you don't have to have all the answers, but you can always say, I know where to get the answers. And people appreciate that.
Well, in your story, so I'm a huge Brene Brown fan, and I say this constantly, stories are data with soul.
Yes.
And so you telling that story, there's so much info in there, right? And it's, man, I just lost the, what was the story again?
So was it the tutu story about my daughter when I had my sales?
Yes. Okay. I'm like, I had a really good point to this. It's problem solving.
Yes.
So just in that, like thinking about how it's problem solving in sales, that's really a major thing that you need. I told my son, I was training this salesperson like a year ago now, and it was really frustrating. And I was like, it's very, very difficult to work with somebody in sales if they don't have common sense and they have no idea how to solve problems.
Right.
It's like trying to explain to people why the joke is funny, like being a comedian and having to explain why the joke is funny. If they don't get this whole common sense piece and why we would make this, why you would go out there and drop off that water and do that thing and where that value would be in that.
Right.
If you're explaining that and they don't put that together and understand why that would be the right thing to do, then there's nothing you can do,
Right.
they're not going to go out and operate on their own. And
you have to have that intuition, I think. And I think you have to be really grounded and, again, just be authentic and be available to people. I mean, I'm the kind of person too. I remember like going to the restaurants when you'd color the little placemats and different things, you'd get 2 or 3 crayons. Well, I learned that if you mix the colors, you'd get more colors and different things like that. So again, problem solving. I color outside the lines all the time. So I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to fail either. And it's just one solution that didn't work. It's all perspective. And I think people that tend to be more positive, collaborative, tend to be more happy, more successful, and people are drawn to them. And I'd like to think that that's the kind of person that I am, and I'm drawn to those kind of people.
Well, what's so cool, and you talked about 4 years ago, you didn't know anybody in Brighton.
None.
And I talked about in this last week, I've said your name so many times, like talking about our meeting, and so many people are like, oh my God, I know Jennifer, she's amazing. And like, it's like every single person that I've brought your name up to is like, oh my God, I know Jennifer, she's amazing. On this podcast, we were talking about the people, and I said your name. I didn't say the other person's name. I said your name in Heather Doring, Heather McGovern.
Yes.
She was like, oh my God, I know Jennifer. And she was like, so it's one of those things, like you go out and you do these things, and that's the results of it. People know you.
Right.
And they all have amazing things to say. They all lit up. They all
makes-
had smiles on their face when your name was brought up. And
Well,
so
that
that's
makes me feel
one of
good.
those things of what are you bringing to the world? Like that is an answer right there, right?
Oh, well, that makes me feel good. And it's compounded. Like, just think about people that you meet with and clients that you meet with. I'm sure that there's things that you don't expect to gain from them, but
Yeah.
you might walk out of a meeting and just go, that was dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that story. I'm going to use that perspective. I'm going to try that tactic. We just constantly are adding. It's kind of like our plates are full. We can constantly add things to our plate. When it gets too full, then we might want to be like, well, you could use some of this. Would you like some? And
Yeah.
it's an ever growing, that's why I love community. It's magical. It's different every time. It's connecting with people. It's being present. How can I help? I don't have to bring the whole pie,
Yeah.
but I can bring my piece.
Yes.
And it's going to feed somebody, and somebody's going to like it.
Yep. And the other thing is you're introducing people to other people making pie or making
Right.
whatever, bringing the entree, right?
Right,
Bringing the side.
Right. One of my favorite stories or fables is stone soup. And why I like that so much is because it really enforces the collaborative effort and how that starts is, the boiling water, and they just had a stone, but just went around to neighbors and saying, oh, that smells wonderful. And, it's just boiling water. But then they keep adding different things to it. So they're adding their own special ingredient, their authenticity, their unique talents and gifts. And when they did, they fed the whole community. And so I look at that every single day, what I'm doing. Am I feeding the community? Am I being a good listener? Am I being authentic? Am I giving everything I can give? Am I also, in turn, asking for help? Am I asking for needs? Am I doing the right things? Do I need to adjust my strategies? Do I need to adjust my schedule? And just finding that time. And it's hard, but you can't rush. You can't have maybe some people do, but I can't have 5 one-on-ones a day because I need to be geared in and focused on that, because then all the follow-up and everything will blend together. And I try to take notes when people talk too, just so I can remember. But that's what's important. When you remember people's names, you remember, if they're married, if they have kids, if they have pets, they like to travel, they have a certain food they like. We all want to be heard. We all want to be recognized. And they're really simple principles.
Yeah.
They're really simple things to do. But if people can latch on and do them authentically, it's nice to hear that people in the community, when they think of my name, they smile. When I think of a lot of people in the community, I smile.
Yeah. That's what, it's I think what we hope to do. And so when you're doing it and when you're living it, I love to, it's awesome for you to hear that too.
Yeah, it is. It makes me feel good in the sense of it makes me want to do more. It makes me want to do more. It makes me feel like, okay, the things that I'm doing, they're working.
That's absolutely it.
Yeah.
That's absolutely it. And you talked about that kind of follow-up piece. I think that's so big, because people have a meeting with somebody or they have a one-on-one and you think, I know that person, or now will they refer people to me, and
I've been guilty of it too.
Yeah.
And I've been guilty.
Have.
I've had things fall from the crack. I'll be honest. I've been guilty too. Or the timing is wrong. I thought that I could expedite an introduction and somebody's leaving out of the country for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I've had that happen numerous times where people are traveling and I'm like, try to follow back and say, hey, I haven't forgot about you. I'm keeping you on my radar and different things. But I tend to be upfront with people too. And not everybody wants to collaborate.
Yeah. Yep.
So I can't force, like you said, somebody who might not have the tools in the toolbox or have the emotional fortitude or the capabilities.
It's operating that lack mindset,
Yeah.
right? And there are people that I collaborate with so many other sales coaches and speakers and coaches. Honestly, being open to coaching or being open to collaborating with other coaches led me to coaching other coaches. And if I wouldn't have if I would have just been like, I'm only going to work with myself. There's a guy that I had connected with at the beginning of my business. And as I was meeting people, I was trying to connect him with other people. And he was like, I have no interest in meeting other coaches or other speakers.
Wow.
He was like, you're the only person I care about knowing in this world. And I'm just going to do everything else by myself. And
Wow.
it's night and day difference. Again, I have this show. This is 112, 113.
Wow.
And most of them have been they've all been the people that I've met in the community or met, in the different communities. I've had people from all over, but.
Don't you think it's kind of like sales too, Jason? Like just because you sell a product, just because somebody needs a product doesn't mean that they're your perfect customer.
Absolutely.
It might not be a good fit. And unapologetically again say, I don't know if this is a good fit, but I wish you well. And hey, I might have a referral for you, but not the person that doesn't want to meet anybody or work with anybody. It's kind of like, good day, enjoy your coffee.
Exactly. I think there's such a fine line, and I think it's all the same. And I've been working with this coach. I've had such a hard time. Like I've had my business for 5 years, and I've been in this whole sales realm because this is where I've had my success, sales and leadership right throughout my career.
Yeah.
I have this whole system that I call Be the Difference. And it's like this, teaching people how to do sales the right way. But what it is it's sales, it's leadership, it's human relationships, all this stuff that we're talking about now. If you go out and you do these things, you're going to build great relationships, personal and professional. Mm-hmm. And that's really where it's all at.
It's all transferable. It makes your whole life richer.
Absolutely.
When you learn things and are able to apply these things, it makes your whole life richer. And everything's transferable. My boss saw value. Some sales directors or bosses might be like, I don't really care about, the child story or the tutu thing, but he saw like, that would be hard to negotiate. Yeah. And you got a deadline.
Yes,
And when you really break it down, you can make it sound professional. You got a deadline. You have to negotiate. You have to close the deal. You have to hurry and wrap up the details, and you have to follow up. And I
would have hired you on the spot. Because I'd always ask people especially people that didn't have much sales experience. I'd always say, "What's the biggest sale you've ever made in your life?" And there'd be I have very few times got good answers on that.
Right.
People are like, I just told you I didn't sell. Like you're always selling.
You are. And I think as you open your eyes to things, you see more opportunities. And again, that's exciting to be engaged in the community with that. And I know in our conversation before I had mentioned that when I'm refueled and balanced in different things, I can look at things really clearly, and I'm really good at that point of seeing what's available. What are my resources? What's available? Because I'm a very resource-oriented person. Collaborative. What are my resources? What's available? What is the need? And then you just lay out all those puzzle pieces down, and you get the framework, and you can do really wonderful things. So I don't always wait for opportunities. I'm a very ambitious person. I'm a very connected to other people and different things. So I create my own.
Yeah.
And so that might be events. I know that CGC is doing some events and different things because what we're really trying to convey too is our community connection. That's so important to us. And so how do you do that? Through hospitality, through education, through kindness, through service. Do you find that with your clients and different things when you talk about sales and things, it's, when you have a message, it's not a one-time speak. It's multiple times. It's different voices, different tones, different words, different ways. You might have props, but it's continuing messaging and showing in different ways and showing up the same authentic self.
Well, so you talked about core values at the beginning,
Yeah.
right? There are so many companies that put core values on the wall, or they have it in their constitution for the company, right? But then
Yeah.
you go around the company and ask their employees what are the core values, and nobody knows.
Or
They
you're like,
like
what's
maybe have a
that?
couple of them down or whatever,
Yeah.
but nobody's really acting on them.
Right.
Nobody. So, but then there's, CGC is. I know I've never worked for them. I've never been in the building, but
Yeah.
I know what that culture is like. I feel it from the employees and from the people that I've
Right.
met from the company and from just the stories I've heard from people of like what the heart of of everybody there is,
Right.
what that culture is like, and just even with everybody being employed in the community.
Yeah.
I mean, water donations. I've got water donations for my events, and just
Yeah.
how they're there. It's speaking those volumes.
We're more than just water.
More than just water. If you show up and did one event and said, "Hey, these are our core values,"
Right.
who cares?
Yeah.
But when you're speaking it in different ways, so many different times,
Right.
it seeps in and people get it.
And when you show up authentically and with excellence and being willing to serve alongside people, serve people without any expectation of anything back, I think that speaks volumes. And when that is seen and heard and seen and heard, it's like, okay, this is real. And so it's something I'm really, really proud about. I'm proud to work for a company. I couldn't go out and sell or do anything because I can't not be authentic. So if I didn't believe in it, I didn't experience
Yeah.
it, if I didn't, have the products, I wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah.
We in sales or entrepreneurship, you have to believe in what you're doing.
You have to.
Yeah. Or how do you do it consciously?
Right. Because then it becomes transactional.
Yes.
Then it
Yep.
becomes, I have this and I need this from you. And, how much easier is it when you have that relationship? So that's kind of like that warm, cultivating relationship. So you already you're starting to trust people. You want to help them. You want to buy things from them. You want to collaborate. You want to do things. So it's a natural progression. It's not forced. It's organic. It happens naturally, and it might not happen immediately. I think we were teasing before the podcast and stuff, saying like, just because you were kind or did something one week or helped somebody, and it's like you don't go knocking on their door and say, well, last Wednesday, I'm waiting for that sale. I'm waiting for that deal.
Yeah. That's not the way it works.
That's not the way it works in life. But it just happens naturally. And so you cast a lot of seeds, and you make sure that you're cultivating those relationships out in the community. And then you come on a podcast and you hear wonderful things. That it just blesses my heart.
It's one of those things. I didn't see It's a Wonderful Life until later in life.
Yeah.
Or later in my life. It was probably maybe 10 years ago. So, but anyways, watching that movie, and have you seen the movie?
Yes.
Great movie, but you see the end, and he didn't think his life was worth living.
Right.
But he did all these things for all these people all over the years, and he didn't go to their door and say, knock, knock, I need help. I'm in this desperate situation. He didn't think that he had anybody. And then everybody shows up in his time of need and gives him the
Yes.
support that he needed because he had always taken care of them.
I love that story. I think that's so beautiful. But again, that's what a community is. You bring your piece. You show up.
Yeah.
And so if you show up and you're available and you listen and you do what you can do, who knows what can happen? I mean,
Once I see sales as serving at the highest level because you are, you're listening. We've talked about you're listening, you're building the relationship. We're doing all the warm and fuzzy things, right? But then at the end of the day, you do have to have something that is going to help them, or a product or a service that is going to take their, going to solve their problem or take their life to the next level.
Yeah, that's when more of the professional schematics come in, where find out deadlines, find out if there's any obstacles, if this is a good fit for that person. They might think you're super and really like you, but it may not be a good fit, and it's okay.
Yeah,
it's okay. And to not just stop at those points and to just keep on going. Just, I can't remember where I read it, but one thing that I learned very early on with sales is you're going to get a lot more no's than you will yeses.
Yes.
And so how I translate that for my mind is I might get 100 no's, but I'm 99% closer to getting a yes. 98% closer. If I keep having a no, I'm getting closer to a yes. And who knows what that yes will be. So you just have to, you just can't give up.
You can't give up in those no's, and we say that, and I used to hear that all the time, and I'm like, it still doesn't take the sting out of it.
Right.
But when there's somebody that's not a good fit, and I've sold people that are not good fits before, and it ends up being a bad situation, a bad client, a bad, it doesn't work out well.
Right.
And so it's getting those no's and just out of the way. Those are better than following up over and over and over again, and nobody's responding back to you. I'd rather get that no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As you're just crossing them off the list and saying, I'm just that much closer to my yes. You don't want to have a miserable experience. You don't want your customer to have a bad experience. So yeah, it all works out in the end. It's just continuing to have those conversations. You can't just stop. You have to keep connecting, keep finding out how you can help people, keep being creative in your approaches and solutions and things, and be consistent. And then circling back to your friends and connections and different things that you haven't in a while. And, I think being trustworthy and authentic too, if you're like, yeah, I dropped the ball. I was supposed to introduce you to somebody. And
yes,
I've actually told people, Jason, I know I promised to introduce you to people. Did I introduce you to everybody? I can't remember. And they're like, oh yeah, you're good. And there's been other people that I'm like, oh, I'm sorry.
But it's one of those things sometimes. And I know I've talked to people that are like, they won't make that call, or it holds them back, and then they just have this awkward relationship, and maybe even even built it up in their head. The other person might have forgot, who knows, versus being vulnerable and saying, oh my God, I dropped the ball. Did I connect you or I didn't? And people laugh because they're like, oh, I forgot all about it or whatever. Maybe they didn't.
Right.
It's one of those things.
Right.
You've seen the movie Billy Madison.
Yes.
When he calls up the one Steve Buscemi, and he crosses his name off the kill list. It's like, they might remember. Right. They might say, oh, it's all good. But then you call them and acknowledge, or you just acknowledge that you dropped the ball, and it's like instantly it's fine. It's like when somebody cuts you off, but they give you the wave. It's all good.
Right.
Instantly.
That's a polite thing to do.
As soon as I get the wave, it's like, oh, they're good people,
Oh. That's so funny. But I mean, that's the other thing too, is, it builds confidence. So like those introductions that are warm that you're passing on to your colleagues and friends, that's a confidence builder for them to help gain that momentum, help meet that need, and different things like that too. And I have a lot of conversations with people in different industries and different things, and we all come up with that. There comes a time where, maybe you've had your 75th no in a row, and it's just been kind of a hard blow, and you just need a positive outlook. Just, you can do this, just power through this. A lot of it is numbers. A lot of it is the more people you talk to, the more people you reach out to, the engagements, the manner in which you do it. If you start, having commission breath and spinning signs and being real salesy and different things like that,
people aren't picking up the phone.
No.
They're not having scheduling.
They're walking by you. Yeah. They're not looking.
If you're out in public and somebody's looking the other way, you're probably trying to sell them too hard.
Right. So it's a fine line, and it is hard because, again, there's so much tied into it. You hit the nail on the head. Intellectually, we know that we need things. Emotionally, we know that we need connections and people, and we want to feel the security of being trustworthy and trusted. We want to be heard.
Yeah.
There's been numerous times as a consumer that I've tried to express a need, or I'm looking for this and that, and then they tell me what I need. And that just sets me back, and I'm like, okay.
Completely opposite of what we just talked about.
I know, and I'm like, okay, that doesn't work for me, but okay. So
Have a great day. Yeah, it's again being seen and heard.
being seen and heard. We all want it. It's
We
a
all want it.
natural human instinct. We all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. To what capacity, to what levels, it just depends on the day for people. But just to be available, seen and heard. We all have stories.
To go back to that and seen and heard, and you talked about the stories. How did you get your daughter to take the ballet outfit off before she went to school? How did you get her to change the outfit?
Well, I knew she liked art, and
Uh-huh.
I said, I think you have art today. And what if you get purple paint on this pretty pink tutu? I don't know if I could get the purple paint out. Would you be okay with just wearing it when you're at home so you don't get it dirty? And she's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, because that's your favorite tutu, She's like, yeah.
Yep.
So just convincing her that, it's not that she can't wear it. It's just maybe the timing isn't right. Maybe it could get damaged or,
You used her interests.
Yeah.
You knew about her. You were able
Yeah.
to persuade her based off of what is close to her heart.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's how we sell people.
That's how we sell people. And again, it goes back to telling stories. So I had to tell a story about a particular thing that she enjoyed. She wanted to enjoy that thing, but she didn't want to damage the tutu. So, negotiations, I tell you, parenthood, there's a lot of tools that you develop.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you stumble into them. Sometimes you find, I have a natural talent for that. And it's all transferable. All life experiences, I'm a firm believer about this, all life experiences are transferable. And I think that sometimes because we've either overcome them or we don't want to tell the whole story of how we got there. Maybe we feel some sense of shame or embarrassment or a sense of, well, it came kind of easy once I got on the program and nobody really wants to hear my story, but that's not true.
Not true.
It's not true, and it doesn't come easy for everybody.
It's so true. And then, like, I spoke at a chamber event back in January, and one of the other people that was there that I spoke with came up and was like, "You're so good at that. You're so talented." And it's like, I worked at that. Because if you would have heard me 2 years ago or even a year ago, it was different. Every single time I speak, I feel like I've grown. And it's just because I keep doing it over and over again. I'm getting stronger and better because I keep practicing and getting better.
Right.
And we evolve, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And but we got to do it.
We got to do it. And even if it feels uncomfortable at first.
Yes.
Even if I know this doesn't feel like it fits right now, but it will. I just have to get comfortable wearing this. And once I walk around and I wear this for a while, and whether it's practicing your elevator pitch so you can eloquently tell people so it doesn't sound like it's rehearsed or written down, that what you do.
Yeah.
And when you internalize that, then you can really speak from your heart, and you can add things and take away things, but just the core things about being able to tell stories and not just say, this is what I do for a living. These are the products I sell. I mean, that'll come up, but how it's going to be received.
Yep.
Yep. Do you want them? So I just had a story that just came to my head. Do you want them to be full on substance, on your story, on your spirit and who you are and your character? Or do you want them to get full on your product? And then you're just another face. You're just another vendor. You're just another.
When somebody comes along and gives a better deal.
Yeah, you're just another business
or
card
that I'm widget.
Yeah. So you have to sell yourself first. You have to sell yourself first. And so when you're likable, you're believable, you're trustworthy, you're committed, and any other great attribute that is out there, if you can really show that consistency, I think people work for you. You build champions. That's what community is, building champions. I can't be everywhere. I can't knock on every door.
Absolutely.
I still have do nothing on my list. I have to do nothing at least one time a week.
That's awesome.
So I can't. But you can build that trust with other people. I mean, now you know who I am. And if there's people that come up to you and say, oh man, I'm moving and my water's awful. And,
If you live in Brighton, by the way, chances are you need to call Jennifer. Brighton, as you enter the into the town, it says where quality is a way of life, except for the water and Main Street right now.
We can help with that.
Yeah.
We can help with that. But the same thing, now that I have a connection with you, now I know about your coaching and your passion and the stories you've told me about different things. So if I hear somebody saying, I'm struggling in my industry, I'm feeling timid, I was confident, now I feel off my game, my market has changed, the things I was doing that were working are not working now, and I don't know what to do next. I'm like, you need to talk to Jason.
Be phenomenal. Yeah. But so I love how you talked about at the beginning, like that long game and how important the long game is, because it's something you talked about, of selling people.
Right.
You can't, people can't sell people that were trustworthy and that were likable and that were all those things that you just talked about.
And you can't be that to everybody.
And you can't be that to everybody.
Because,
Yeah. But those things happen over time.
They do.
They don't happen on that one conversation.
Right.
You might like somebody. You might think somebody's funny. You might think somebody's charismatic. You might think they are good at what they do. But you don't know. You don't have a trust level.
Right.
You may not, from that first meeting, you don't necessarily know that person. It's a dating process, right?
Right, it is.
And as we do more, so I've known about you for a while, Natalie, people in the community, your name's been mentioned quite a bit. And then so when you came up to me after the marketing mashup and was like, yeah, let's definitely, but we met up, we had a one-on-one. Next thing you know, you're here because you asked the question, right? You're like, hey, I have an idea.
Right.
Like, yeah, let's talk. Because more people need to hear this.
Right.
Because this is the way sales should be done.
Absolutely. And you have to have conversations. And I think sometimes people keep things close to their chest too, and you have to be willing to be able to be vulnerable and say, okay, I may not be good at this, I may not understand this, or this isn't working. It doesn't even always have to be the same industry, because I think a lot of the same feelings. I mean, what do we look at? So rejection is a negative thing with sales. Not having a full funnel. Yep. Not seeing a turnaround time. Maybe there's a lag time, overcoming objections, being able to close a sale. There's different comfortability levels, different experiences and things like that. And I think when people are willing to share ideas and tricks that work, refer books, training, anything, it's a constant growth process, because you might be hitting it out of the park in some areas, but some areas might be weaker, and you just have to keep building that up. It's not a one and done. I read the book, I'm good.
Well, you got to read the book and go do something out of the book, right?
Right. Apply a principle.
Apply it. And you mentioned a great one a little bit ago, Go Giver by Bob Berg. Phenomenal book.
Love it.
Again, that's the way sales is done. That's the way people should be done. Business, it should be, that's the way business should be done. But when you're reading it, go do some of the things they're talking about. Go apply some of those things.
Right.
So you can take that action and flex that, start building that muscle.
Right.
If you don't go to the gym, you're not going to build the muscle. If you don't go and take the action steps, if you read a book, you're just going to know some knowledge.
Right. And that's the other thing. You have to have time to digest it and apply it.
Yeah.
And so I'm all about, I believe readers are leaders. I believe that being a lifelong student in application, continuing education, whatever that looks like for people, reading podcasts, just constantly refueling yourself. But you have to allow time to digest and apply, because it goes back into like I said about having 5 one-on-ones. It looks great on paper.
Absolutely.
But then it's a mess. then you're quoting things out of wrong books and applying different principles, forgetting stuff, and it's just not retaining. You have to allow time.
It's about quality over quantity.
It is.
It can look sexy to say I made 100 calls and I had 40 meetings or whatever.
I read
but
30
then,
books this month.
What
Okay.
was the quality connection out of that?
Yeah.
You met with 40 people or 30 people, or you read 30 books, but what did they say?
No. I know it's important. So that's again another check mark in my matrix. I know that everybody in sales has kind of like, we have quotas, we have all these things set up and stuff like that. But are you checking the important boxes? Are you really investing in the important boxes? Reaching out and saying, I need some help in these areas. These are things I'm trying and they're not working, but I'm running out of ideas. I have a wonderful manager. She wants to invest. She listens, team up. She works shoulder to shoulder with us. And, I'm really excited about some of the things that are coming on the horizon for us. But, that's what it takes.
She's been mentioned a couple times.
I know.
The Mitten Junk guys shouted her out a couple episodes ago.
Oh,
so, yeah.
She's fantastic. She's wonderful. And I think it's important. And I think, again, going back to being a good leader is not one that's going to just provide information and just say, okay, run with that. They're going to mentor, show you, disciple you, work side by side with you. And if you have to circle back on some things and do some other stuff to just gain stronger, because what is a team? They're only as strong as their weakest link. Mm-hmm. So isn't it beneficial for everybody to be a strong link?
Absolutely.
And so, again,
I always looked at it as a leader and it's like, I had retail locations, and at the beginning, I would, if I had a friend or a family member or a good client of mine, I'd say, "Oh, go see this person."
Yeah.
And then I found myself, if I've got to say you got to go see this person and don't go see this person, then I've got a problem in my team.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, so I get that if I got to apologize for anyone on my team, like either we've got to figure out how to reinvest in this person and get them back up and running, or if they're not a fit, then we've got to, we can't have somebody on the team that I'm going to tell my friends, family, and good customers, don't go to that person because somebody else is getting that experience.
Right. And again, it's changing your perspective. And the more books that I've read about leadership and different things like that too, it's the positioning. And so when you think about that, when you're working alongside somebody, you're gaining momentum together. Yeah. If you're behind somebody and you're pushing them to strive, you're meeting resistance. If you're pulling somebody from behind, there's that off-kilter authority thing, and
now you're trying to pull dead weight.
And you're trying to pull dead weight. And who wants that? Then you're going to hurt your back.
You're like a horse. You're trying to push.
So, it makes sense. The momentum is together. The momentum is shoulder to shoulder together. And so, again, all these things apply. All these things are about relationships, community.
Isn't it cool how leadership and sales tie so closely together, though?
They do.
Because you're even talking about your daughter. That's leadership.
Yes.
And, if you think of people, it's so cool how it all closely ties together.
It does.
We make it much harder than what it is.
Right. It's not bullet points that are separate. It's like a spider web. Everything, you pull one string, it all moves. And so, again, it's just reassessing, is everything secure? My pastor gave a really cool story about a foundation, and he was talking about, fear. And so making sure that you have a clean foundation when you're like preparing for a tent. Nobody wants to sleep on a pine cone, by the way. So you want to make sure that it's a flat, dry, good surface. So then as you're putting all the tent stakes in, you're creating a foundation, you're securing those things. So, trustworthiness, faithfulness, all these things that are a good foundation, whatever that speaks and means to that individual. And so when you have that and you erect your tent, it's a sanctuary. It's a safe place. It's not going to blow over. It's going to be comfortable. And I think about those principles in life is, what are we pounding into the ground? What kind of foundation are we on? Is our foundation secure? Good. Do we need to kind of hammer in some tent stakes? Do we need to make sure that the poles are right so that we can be what we need to be and be hospitable to let people in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can feel comfortable letting people in.
Yeah. And be secure, like, this tent's not going anywhere.
That is such an awesome story.
Yeah.
How do you talked about the do nothings and refilling your bucket. How do you do that?
Well, it's a variety of different things. I love listening to music. And so Christian contemporary music tends to be my favorite. I love listening to music. I love morning sunrises, so I have coffee outside every morning, and I just have quiet time. And then when the birds start singing and chirping and different things, I'm like, okay, I got to get motivated and get back inside. Activities,
they're off to work. You're off to work.
Yeah, they're starting their day. I got to start thinking about mine. I love my husband. He's my best friend. I think laughter fuels the soul. It allows us to kind of let down pretenses. Sometimes laughter can be a lot of things. It can be a self-medication. It can be a defense mechanism to kind of defer things and just try and figure things out. It can just be simply for joy. And so I, again, unapologetically, I have embraced my laugh, and either people love it or hate it because it's unique and it's loud, but I laugh. I'm a woman of faith, so I really stay grounded with that. And that's what allows me to pour out into other people. I'm not afraid if my bucket's carrying extra water and it's splashing on the floor. That means I'm abundant. Now, when my bucket is dry, then I need to go back. And so that's the things that I think about. And sometimes it's just being in my sweats. Sometimes it's just literally doing nothing. I'm not talking. I'm not engaging. I'm not doing anything. So
I think that's so important to say because sometimes there's so much guilt with that.
Yeah.
That I'm not doing anything. I'm just sitting in my sweats.
And my husband knows that. He goes, "Oh, you're doing nothing again." I go, "Yep, I'm doing nothing."
It's on the schedule. I love how I don't know if you said this in this episode or beforehand, but it's like, no, sorry, I got something on the calendar.
I got something on my calendar. I'm not lying.
It's the truth.
Now people are going to start asking, "Is it do nothing?"
Oh no! What do we do? We may have to edit this out, John.
I'll plead the fifth. I said, no, it's been there for a minute.
No, this is an executive meeting.
All right.
It's been there for a minute. There are ways to answer questions without answering the question. And that's the thing is, I think we oftentimes think because we're so accessible, like and everybody knows exactly what we're doing at all times. You know, it's like one of those things. Like I don't want to be available right now because I think we're both very similar in a lot of ways. With like I think we're probably naturally extroverted people. We get energy from people, but at the same time, I do have to have that alone time. I've got to refill my bucket. I'm a Gemini, so I have my times where I love being around people, and then I have my times where I could be by myself for hours. And be completely happy.
And I've been like, I haven't seen them for a while.
Exactly. And it's like they could be gone for another couple hours, and I'll be fine. You know. And then there's like, oh, they're gone. Where's everybody at? You know, like I'm ready to. Where's everybody at? You know. But it's just different but to be in that space and if you jump on Facebook and all of a sudden people are texting you and you're like, oh my God. So we think that we've gotta share with people exactly what we're doing.
So let's talk about why do nothing is valuable.
Yeah.
So do nothing. We talked about resentment, like doing things out of obligation instead of really making sure, am I adding value? Do I have the time for this? Are my intentions good? Am I doing this just to do this and not, because we're human beings. I mean, I try really hard to let my yes be yes, my no be no. And, if I find that I have a conversation or a connection or try to squeeze too many things into something and I'm not allowing enough time, communication's going to be off. My attitude might be off. I might be a little more fueled with my emotions. I might not be a good listener. Those are all things I don't want to project and I don't want other people to experience. And I don't really like experiencing those things. So it's it's really good to be aware. And so the do nothing is really doing something.
It really
so maybe
is.
I should change it to doing something for me.
Do something for me. This when people ask you, are you doing nothing? Nope.
Doing something.
I'm doing something. Back at the end of March, we took a vacation. We took a cruise,
Yeah.
and my phone was lit. I didn't pay for the internet package on purpose because I didn't want my phone being on. And it was
Right.
just so nice as a family to go and not have a phone, not have to worry about
Yes.
texting, and it's no apologies. I let everybody know beforehand. You can
Right.
text me and message me all you want, but you're not gonna see.
Right. You
I'm
won't
not
see
gonna
it
get it.
until-
You're not gonna see. I'm not gonna see it. So, so it's just so awesome to get that refresher to have 6 days of do nothing.
I love that too. And going back to cell phones, that's something that my husband and I do a lot. Like when we go out to dinner or different things, like we'll leave them in the car, or we'll leave them at home, or, they just won't be accessible. And I think that's good because we live in we can be as busy
Yeah.
as we can
Oh, we
handle.
can be as busy as we can handle.
be as busy as we can handle.
Yep.
And so it's
24/7. We could do it
Twen-
all day.
all day.
Yep.
All day. And really, at what point do you get the quality? And really, isn't that what we're in search for, is the quality, the excellence,
Yep.
So doing more isn't getting more. So I think that's important. And I think that's one of those things I learned. Before I thought, when I was a little girl, I used to use the term, more is better. I know that's grammatically wrong, but that's what I said. So I'm
Yeah.
being real.
Yeah.
So more is better. But now I've learned that quality is best.
Quality's best.
Quality's best.
I worked in a retail setting, and for a long time, multitasking was it was like a plus.
Mm-hmm.
Can you multitask? And then I realized multitasking is the absolute worst. It waters down the
is.
whole entire experience. If I'm talking to you and then I'm trying to help this person over here, I'm helping no one.
I know. And it is. And you can't do all those things well. And are you listening? If you're trying to listen and do something, you're not.
You're half.
You're
listening to other
half.
people.
You're
Yep.
half. If you're trying to do an email and read something and do something else at the same time, are you really retaining that? I know I'm not. So
Nope.
it's like really scheduling that time. So if you need to read emails, just schedule a time that says admin and just spend that quality time reading through them instead of reading the headlines.
Yep.
Because again, I've been guilty. I've learned from my own experiences. You read the headline, then you read the body and you go, oh, that wasn't even close.
Yeah.
My response made no sense.
I have done that recently. So,
And you don't get any blue ribbons for getting through that task faster. You don't. Nobody's saying, man, you checked 5 things off today.
In fact, it's now more time because everybody's trying to figure out what I'm asking.
I know, right? Right? They'll start saying, hey, do you have do nothing on your schedule or what? No, but it's about quality. And this is something I'm learning to do better too, is to be able to communicate to people that I might be at full capacity right now. This is a great idea. I think this is going to be a more in-depth conversation than I can have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can we schedule this? Or I've had a schedule shift. I really would love to meet. If this isn't convenient, let's plan for a time where we can be focused because I value your time.
Yep.
Instead of just trying to squeeze it in. Because people know that and people feel that. And I don't want that either. I don't want to be an appetizer. I don't want to just be a drive-through.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a great experience. Now I'm off to the next stop.
I've literally said to people, like, I could throw you in, but who wants to do that? Right? Who wants to be thrown in?
Yuck.
I know, right? Like, that doesn't sound good. Like, let's take a time where I can be more committed or
Right.
more open to you, where we can have the time and the space, right, to get
Right.
done or to listen to what's going on.
Right. Because then what are you achieving again? And I think we've kind of had this, at least I feel like I have this kind of conversation, you could say, going back and forth, these two voices of, get it done. You're doing great, da-da-da-da-da-da. Slow down, enjoy the process, enjoy the journey,
Yep.
back up. You know what? You forgot a step. Back up. It's okay. Back up. You need to reschedule that. That's an unrealistic time frame.
And what we're sharing right now is some two reformed people pleasers. You
Yeah.
know, I can
You too?
I can so relate with what you're saying
my
because
gosh.
it's again, I just wanted to help everybody, right? I wanted
Right.
to, and so I'm giving out, give.
Right.
Until then, I was dropping the ball and I have triple plans and I'm dropping the ball everywhere. It's one of those things I had to explain in that communication. And I think before, as we were entering the studio, we said something about communication and how key it is.
Right.
It's just being able to talk that out of this is what's going on.
Right.
When you say that
Right.
and you position to them, I call them transition statements. The transition
Right.
statement is like why something is about to
Right.
happen, or why I'm saying something, and why it's important, why you should care.
Right.
Because again, I don't want to throw you in. You don't want to be thrown in.
Right.
Let's take some time where, we take the time.
Right.
And to be able to transition it and explain it like that, I've never had anybody be like, nope, I want to be jammed in right now. And if so, they're unreasonable people you don't want to sit and try to make time for anyways. Nope, right now.
My schedule's full, sorry. No,
Well, it's crazy. My whole schedule just got booked instantly.
I know, right? I was just looking and wow, and that's okay, and it's okay. But I've learned, and some of my lessons have been by making mistakes and being like, oh man, I don't want to go through that again. That was painful, or that was uncomfortable, and then everything worked out in the end, but the process could be better. And so I try to really look at processes and efficiencies and how things can be streamlined, and not everything can be, perfect and different things like that, but just how can I keep being the best at what I'm doing and approach things the best way that I can. It won't be perfect. I'm at the end of the day, I'm not kicking off my shoes and saying, man, but just learning and growing and learning and growing. I think that's what we do as human beings. And the more flexible you are with that, and the more coachable you are with that, you're happier and you're more successful.
The more you realize it.
Yeah.
Because I think the people that expect perfection are living miserable lives.
Right. And that is not my ideal customer.
In order to be my ideal customer, you must accept that I'm not perfect.
Do you like broken crayons? Okay, we can work together.
Broken crayons? Before we enter into this, I need to ask you.
Right. This is kind of a catalyst question. Oh.
That is hilarious. Jennifer, thank you so much for coming down here.
It's been great.
It's been awesome. It's one of those things I could keep talking. We could talk about this stuff all day, and people need to hear this stuff. So.
Well, this was wonderful, and I hope we can do this again. I look forward to introducing you to more people, building our community, and collaborating, and I just appreciate you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.